Judge retaliates, takes out restraining order against mom, and she gets Arizona's legislature to investigate family court. Just when you think you know all the dirty tactics family court judges use against mothers, here's a new one: restraining orders. This week, an Arizona mom filed an excellent 100-page complaint detailing all the methodical means her judge used to switch custody to her ex. A central focus was the use of a restraining order, in which the judge claimed the mom's exposure of her misconduct constituted stalking and harassment. It is a basic democratic right to speak about any public figure, especially a judge who is paid by the taxpayer and is lying about you publicly. But the RO is obviously not really for the judge's protection. It is to silence, smear, intimidate, and punish the mother for having dared to whistle blow on the judge and the system itself. This mother has done an admirable job holding her judge and others involved in her case accountable in the only ways available to her. This incredibly written complaint is just the latest in a series of actions. She launched a recall campaign, which ended in the judge's recusal, started a petition that's gotten thousands of signatures, and issued a press release that's gotten national mainstream and social media attention. Most notably, perhaps, she has also gotten the Arizona state legislature to intervene in her case and launch an investigation into family court. More on that below, but first, Erin's story. Erin gave birth to Brooklyn in 2018 in Mesa, Arizona. She was engaged but never married the father, who is in law enforcement. She broke off the engagement and left him in early 2022, after enduring physical and emotional abuse. The separation followed an especially violent assault perpetrated in Front Brooklyn. That is child abuse on top of spousal abuse. Then, as is so often the case with abusive exes, he vengefully threatened he was going to take Brooklyn away and destroy her. Erin reported his violence to law enforcement, but nothing was done, possibly due to her ex being a police officer. Realizing they would not be protected in Arizona, she moved with Brooklyn to California. She warned him that if he came after them, she would file for a restraining order. She made reports of his violence to the Los Angeles Police Department. That did not deter him. He began sending her threats, so she disappeared off the radar in August. In early 2023, Erin's ex procured a bogus restraining order against her, after which he was granted sole custody of Brooklyn. He was then able to get LA police to issue a missing child alert, and it was entered in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children database, an organization famous for helping abuser fathers capture their fleeing exes. While in hiding, Erin took to social media. She spoke out about the injustices in her case and how neither police, nor CPS, nor family court would protect Brooklyn and her. This irritated all of the case colluders, and her ex filed a complaint claiming harassment. Erin had made a report to Mesa police earlier about the threats he had made, including documentation proving it. Nothing was done then, but in January 2024, a detective at the PD did his buddy a solid. He reopened the case and deemed Erin the perpetrator who had sent the threats to herself to frame him. This conveniently led to an arrest warrant, after which he launched an investigation with the ultimate goal of capturing Erin and returning Brooklyn to her rightful owner. Meanwhile, Judge Jackson continued to enable this whole scheme via family court orders. Amazingly, despite being in hiding, Erin fought like hell. She not only exposed the injustices on social media, she attempted to get Judge Jackson to recuse. Needless to say, that didn't work. By October of last year, Erin had launched a recall effort, from hiding. Jackson habitually places victims of domestic violence and child abuse in danger while protecting their abusers. There were plenty of other Judge Jackson victims who spearheaded the campaign against her locally. One was a mother who'd lost custody to the father who'd been indicted on 12 counts of molesting and sodomizing their son. And there were other father molesters she'd given custody as well. There are children in danger because of this judge who is known for placing children in the hands of actual pedophiles and abusers. Erin was largely responsible for getting the Arizona legislature to take notice that things are not as they should be in family court. Representative Rachel Keschel intervened in Erin's case, and she launched a congressional investigation into family court with Senator Mark Fincham. This led to Judge Jackson recusing herself from Erin's case. Thus, the Joint Legislative Ad Hoc Committee on Family Court Orders was initiated. 3 senators and 3 representatives were assigned to the committee. They have been taking public testimony to assess what legislation they could pass that would make a difference. At the hearing on August 27th, mothers and fathers complained about their individual cases, with no coherent through line. There was one professional, Danielle Pollock, who testified, speaking for the U.S.-based National Family Violence Law Center and National Safe Parents Organization. She says she also plays a role as an international policy consultant. As such, she is afforded much credibility in legislatures, as well as with mothers trapped in custody crisis cases. The problem is, Pollock's assertions as to what the crisis is, why it is happening, and what an effective legislative solution are provably wrong. She asserts the crisis is judges giving custody to abusers, both fathers and mothers. That is not true. There is only one epidemic: judges giving custody to fathers, abusive or not, who want to take children away from primary nurturing mothers, even if just to avoid child support. Conversely, there is no crisis of judges switching custody to mothers who should not have it. Pollock informs the Arizona legislators the reason judges are giving custody to abusers is because they don't understand domestic abuse. They are being misled by appointees who have immunity and aren't qualified. They are relying on pseudoscientific theories like parental alienation. They are victims of a pro-contact culture, and because third-party neutrals are profiteering, i.e., the cottage industry, and the AFCC is influencing policy. Although these may be problems, none is the core cause of the crisis. Attacking them is like trimming leaves from trees, leaving the root to sprout more. For in-depth explanations on these distractions, see the Women's Coalition Custody Crisis Rabbit Holes series, and Pollock's proposed solution to the legislators of the Arizona Committee. Pass Caden's Law. She tells them it has 4 main components: training for judges and appointees, consideration of past abuse, require qualified appointees, and ban reunification camps. Pollock brags how Caden's Law has already been passed in 10 states, and they are actively working on more, but gives no evidence it or any similar laws have made any difference. The reality is, child safety laws have been passed for the last 3 decades, and they have made 0 difference because they do not eliminate the cause of the crisis. Family court judges having extrajudicial powers ignore evidence, violate laws, and lie. To continue to promote these false narratives and solutions harms our movement to end the real and only custody crisis. Judges deliberately entitling and empowering men after divorce, to the great detriment of women and children. All the attention seems to have motivated the powers that be to intensify the search for Aaron, and it likely triggered Jackson's campaign of vengeance. Judge Charlene Jackson engaged in a sustained campaign of judicial retaliation, judicial harassment, and procedural abuse designed to obstruct proceedings, suppress oversight, and manipulate the treatment of litigant Aaron Gerlach and her daughter across multiple legal forums. In February of this year, Mesa police officers and officers from the Murrieta Police Department joined forces and raided Aaron's home in Riverside County, California. Armed officers forcibly removed Brooklyn from her mother's arms. She had just turned 7 the day before. Aaron was arrested and charged with 2 Class 4 felony charges of custodial interference and using a false identity. She was released on bond in March. Immediately after Aaron's arrest, Judge Jackson filed for the restraining order against Aaron. Not surprisingly, it is being used against her in the criminal case. There is obviously collusion between the DA and judge. In pursuit of a personal vendetta, Jackson filed a knowingly false restraining order in her individual capacity. By doing so, she stepped outside the bounds of her judicial role and forfeited the protections of judicial immunity. Judge Jackson stated the basis for the RO was Aaron speaking out publicly about her corruption and bias. This was, she claimed, judicial harassment and judicial stalking. Jackson sought to silence a mother who was exposing her misconduct so that her own violations could remain concealed from public scrutiny. This absurd restraining order is clearly retaliatory. It is an effort to discredit and smear Aaron. Her, The judge's actions were not the result of error or oversight. They were calculated, coercive, and executed under color of law to punish a whistleblower, distort legal outcomes, and ensure punitive treatment of a mother who lawfully exposed systemic misconduct. Takeaways. Both Erin's ex and her judge procured restraining orders to punish and silence her. Is this the next weapon in the custody arms race? Women are bravely speaking out about injustice, and now they are being shut down with ROs for harassment and stalking. This is ironic, since it is the mother who is actually being harassed by this misuse of restraining orders. It is really litigant harassment, akin to a SLAP, strategic lawsuit against public participation, as its purpose is not to protect a victim, but to silence and intimidate a whistleblower. So maybe women need to come up with a sort of anti-SLAP response to counter these bogus protective orders. If you are an attorney and have an idea, email info@womensscoalition.org. Curiously, the Arizona Commission on Judicial Conduct has already colluded with Judge Jackson in launching an investigation of Erin. But Erin has no other options to hold her accountable, so she has to file her complaint to the very same oversight agency. But these ethical commissions rarely provide meaningful oversight. They seldom mete out any sort of discipline to family court judges, and when they do, it is a slap on the hand. This case is a flashpoint. It reveals how Arizona's family court system punishes those who speak out, and how oversight bodies protect judges instead of the public. We go into more detail about how there is no effective oversight in family court, by design, in our latest rabbit hole segment, down the transparency and accountability rabbit hole. Finally, this case should be used to confirm that we do not need any more investigations by legislatures or judiciaries, or anyone. There have been plenty of investigations like the one in Arizona that go absolutely nowhere in the end. Sure, they give mothers validation, but that does not help end the crisis. The only thing that will end the crisis is custody cases being removed from family court and heard in a regular civil court, where juries are the fact finders and judges can do nothing but make sure the law is followed, e.g., they cannot appoint any third-party neutrals or make any rulings contradicting the jury's findings. Our Child Custody Act provides for this new system, and that is what women should be demanding, not asking, legislators to enact. Join us at the Women's Coalition, where we are gathering troops and our activism community, sisters in solidarity. What's next? Erin awaits her criminal trial for custodial interference and identity theft, which is scheduled for later this year. She is facing a sentence of over 7 years in prison. It seems she is not allowed any visitation with Brooklyn, even supervised. Family court judges often use criminal charges as a pretext to prohibit contact. This is another tactic used to get kids under the father's control, isolate them from their primary attachment figure to traumatize them. This ungrounding is the foundation for the brainwashing and trauma bonding with the perpetrator that follows. We call that judicial alienation because it is being enabled by judges' orders. This term and concept are introduced in our previous column, NY Mom Commits Suicide After 5 Years of Judicial Alienation from Son. Prohibiting of mothers seeing their children is also done to punish and torture uppity women who won't get with the program, shutting up about the abuse and injustices being perpetrated against them by their exes and the system. Judges seem to delight in women being tormented by the deprivation of their children, arguably the worst form of torture a mom can endure. Conversely, even men convicted of serious violence or murder are allowed to have visitation with their children. Even when fathers are in prison for serious crimes, including murdering the mother, judges will order children to visit them in prison. Watch this space for updates on Erin's case. Share, like, and comment. Note: facts in this story comes from mainstream and social media and the mother's advocates. They have not been independently verified, hence all are alleged. Links to sources may be found in the Substack article. In other news, Hagged Mums is organizing court support for Teresa this Wednesday at 9 a.m. in Austin, Texas. She is the mother we reported on last month in our column, Actor vs. Model, Custody Battle Spans, 4 continents and 10 years. If you'd like to go or get in touch with others who will be there, contact info@haggedmums.org. There is no Zoom link yet, but there may be one later. Chapter 3 of Everything is Going to Be Okay is out. It is a captivating novel about a woman who finds herself in family court, fighting desperately to maintain custody and protect her children. In the last chapter, Amanda marries Damien after a short courtship. While on their honeymoon, he insists they have kids immediately, and she is thrilled when Louis is born a year later. But she is unhappy with his constant partying. Their relationship begins to deteriorate, and Louis shows behavioral problems after spending time alone with Damien. Mandy considers leaving, but becomes pregnant again. Sequential sections are released every Wednesday. Be sure and subscribe so you will receive them in your inbox. You may also access them anytime at Women's Coalition News and Views on the top menu bar of our Substack site, womenscoalition.substack.com. Sisters in Solidarity. Our October Sisters in Solidarity SIS Forum will be on October 18th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. London, Sydney, 6 a.m. the 19th. If you'd like to engage in activism to end the crisis, please read about and fill out the form on our website, womenscoalition.org. That's it for Custody Crisis Stories this week. If you appreciate our work, please consider contributing at the links in the description box. Thanks, and see you next week for another Custody Crisis story.